Hello and welcome back to another vlog with me, Sophie. This week is another sit down vlog. I haven't done one of these for a little while by myself, but what I wanted to do was actually talk to you about something that happened to me a couple of years ago now, and something that's kind of ongoing still as well. So I am talking to you today about a condition called Bell's palsy, and I'm also going to be touching on trigeminal neuralgia. Now, these are two conditions that are both to do with your face. Some of you might have heard of these before, some of you might also have your own experiences with it. They can be very different, varying from person to person. This is just my experience and what happened to me and how I coped with it, and also my ongoing kind of medical conditions from all of this. So yeah, this is just my story about it. So yeah, you might want to grab a cup of tea because this will be a sit down vlog. So yeah, go and get that, and I will see you in a moment. So back in 2018 now, so it'll be 3 years ago in July, I went through something called Bell's palsy. So that's where we're going to start our kind of journey in our story, I guess is what you might say. Now, Bell's palsy is where your face basically becomes paralysed. So it's called an idiopathic paralysation of the face, and it can be on either side. Now, it's caused by the 7th cranial nerve in the face, which basically comes down here and it spreads out a bit like a hand. And if I can find a image of that or a diagram of that, I will try and pop that in now. Now, you might notice that I refer to my notebook. Although I know lots about this, I just kind of wanted to make sure that I had my notes here so that I could make sure that what I was telling you was correct. Now, this is called a temporary facial paralysis. So it's different to, for example, a stroke where you might end up with kind of permanent facial paralysis. But it does vary per person. So when I say it causes facial paralysis, it includes everything on one side of the face. Now, for me, it was this side of my face. And that includes everything from my eye. So my eye couldn't close properly. Now, I was quite lucky, I could close mine a little bit. Some people, it is literally stuck open. I couldn't do this, so I couldn't move this eyebrow at all, or any of these muscles. I couldn't smile, I couldn't move this cheek here. And I couldn't also like eat properly. My lip just wouldn't like go up. And also I had problems tasting, so I couldn't taste. I couldn't smell properly because it affects this in here as well. So it's literally everything. Now, it varies from person to person. Some people get a mild paralysis and some people get complete paralysis. Now, I got complete paralysis on that side of my face, and it basically occurs over a 24 to 72 hour period. So it will start, and it's a very sudden onset. I could be sitting to you here right now and it could just suddenly start, and that's it sounds really scary, but this is quite rare. About 40,000 people a year get it, so don't panic. Most people tend to wake up with it. For me, it happened whilst I was awake. And then what happens is it gradually gets worse over 72 hours, and at the 72 hour period it will be at its worst, and it won't get any worse after that. So I went from having kind of getting it, noticing something was wrong, and I'll explain to you how that happened, and by the time I got to that 72 hour period it was completely frozen. So it was actually a few days after Chris's birthday party a couple of years ago. So So we had a murder mystery party. Chris and I had been out the week before. We'd gone to the Science Museum and we'd just been doing some really nice things. I'd actually also just come back from a festival and I'd been quite ill. I sort of was quite run down. I'd been really busy. I had sort of a viral thing going on. But that completely cleared up and I was feeling absolutely fine at his party on the Saturday, I think it was. Yeah, it was a Saturday. And basically I went to work on the Monday and I remember saying to my colleague, I feel really sinusy again, like really in here. I could feel tired. My face just felt really tired, really groggy. But I got through the day and I was driving home. And as I was driving home, I felt so tired to the point where I actually called Chris and I was like, I might even have to pull over because like I just feel like I can't really keep my eyes open, like I feel really tired. But I got home safely and we sat down and I was just like, it's probably just normal tiredness. I'm probably just worn out. We've been doing loads. And it was in our old flat and Chris was like, I'll make dinner. You sit and chill. Now that night we were having burgers, so we were sat on the sofa and Chris was sat on my right hand side and I was sat on the left, and he brought over the dinner, so the burger and the chips, and I had just started eating and I said to Chris, it just feels weird. I said, something doesn't feel right. I said, like, I'm trying to eat this burger and it doesn't feel right. So Chris was like, oh, okay, right, because he was sat next to me, he couldn't really see me, we weren't opposite each other. So I like put my feet down and I was like, can you just have a look, like what's going on? So he like got up and he came and he faced me and he was like, oh, just like open your mouth. And I was like, so I opened my mouth and sort of smiled. He's like, stop holding your face weird. And I was like, I'm not holding my face weird. And at this point I was kind of laughing and he was like, no, seriously, stop holding weird. And I was like, I'm not. And he was like, I don't think everything's right. So I went to the bathroom and I looked at my face and you could see it was like drooping slightly. And it was very strange. It didn't hurt. It wasn't, you know, anything else. It just felt really strange. That's the only way I can describe it. If you've ever had it, you'll know. And we went back into the living room and I was quite calm. And we sat down and I remember thinking to myself, I can think normally. I can lift my arms up. You know, I can still talk. And I was like, I don't think this is a stroke. I don't think this is a stroke. I'm okay. And just kind of repeating that to myself, because obviously the other things that, you know, could have happened could have been a stroke, it could have been a brain tumour, and these were other things that the doctors had to rule out, or to, sort of by asking questions and various things. So anyway, we basically decided, and it was a bit silly because if you ever have anything happen to you that like you, the first thing you should probably do is call 999. Because that's what they say, isn't it? The fast things, the face, arms, speech. If any of you get those, one of those symptoms, you should call. So obviously had the face, so I should have called, but we didn't. We actually called 111, and the lady on the end of the phone was like, "You need to go to hospital, like now." Which was like, "I've phoned ahead and I've told them you're coming." So we turned up, and we were taken straight into one of the rooms, and one of the doctors came in and started asking me all these questions. And kind of between this time, I'd heard of Bell's palsy. And I looked it up and I was like to Chris, I think it could be this. But then when we went and saw the doctor, because it only just started and maybe they weren't quite as knowledgeable, that doctor might not have been, he was like, no, it's definitely not Bell's palsy. And that's when now I was like, oh God, and sort of started to worry. Went out. They were like, we're going to do some tests and things. They sent me to another room. They started to get me to do some other things, ask me questions, making me move my arms, etc. And another doctor came in and they said, yeah, it is Bell's palsy, which I actually was relieved, because if it had been something else, that would have been much, much worse. So he was like, he was really, really nice about it. He was like, I've got to be honest with you, it's going to get worse over the next 3 days. And obviously there was lots of questions, but it's really like, by this point, I think really late in the night, possibly even early hours of the morning, and I was just really tired. So they sent me home with like loads of information, and they got me a eye patch, they got me a load of steroids. So that's basically what they said. They said the treatment for this is steroids. So I was put on prednisone, I can't really pronounce it, or prednisone, one of those two, however you pronounce it. And it was going to be a course of about 3 weeks, and then we would see where we're at, and they would also in this time refer me for physio, and other than that I was to make an appointment with my doctor the next day. So I went home, went to bed, woke up the next day, and it was kind of that initial, when you wake up, has this actually happened? Oh wait, yes it has. And it was almost kind of funny at first, and I sort of looked in the mirror and it was a lot worse. And I'll put in the photo of that day when Chris actually went out and he bought me some roses, and by this point it was basically almost at its worst. And like if I smiled, I looked, I mean it's called facial distortion, but I looked like a pirate. We kept laughing that I looked like a pirate, so we did this kind of pirate face together. And then obviously I had to phone my family and explain what happened, and they were all really worried, and I was like, it's fine, it's gonna clear up, it's absolutely fine. And I was quite positive actually throughout. I don't remember really getting too upset at any point. There were periods later where I did get upset about it, but at this point I was like, this is just something that's happened and I have to get on with it. And actually, even about that, the next day I woke up, and that's why Chris had got me flowers later in the day, because in the morning I had work and I was running a toddler group and I couldn't not turn up. These people were turning up. We had no time to tell anyone. So I rushed down. Chris drove me because I couldn't drive. Chris drove me down to work. I started to get everything ready. My colleagues were like, what are you doing here? Like, I phoned my boss and she was like, we're sending someone to take over. And it was actually like my boss's boss that came down, who's now our CEO, Christine Luxton. And she came down. She was amazing. She just took everything on with me. She asked me if I could just stick around for a little while just so we could run through my diary, make sure that everything was covered, and then she just sent me home. And yeah, so we went back home, and then Chris popped out to get some bits and brought me back some flowers, and that's when we took that photo. And then I had to tell obviously all my parents and my sisters and everyone was really worried, but yeah, I was alright about it. So I then ended up on the steroids, and I was having to take, I think it was like 12 steroids a day, so it's quite a lot. But what they didn't tell me was some of the other side effects. Now, I wrote some of it down just here to kind of remind myself, but basically it included tiredness. I couldn't eat properly, so I was having to adjust the things that I ate. I couldn't drink properly, and they suggest not drinking with a straw because it trains your mouth to do different things. But when I would drink, it would like dribble out my mouth. And then I was getting extreme pain, like really bad pain and tiredness. So when I went to the doctors, they signed me off work. I think they signed me off for an initial period of like 6 weeks. And then they signed me off for longer than that. So after 2 weeks, I still didn't have any movement. So I went a whole 2 weeks, even 3 weeks. I went 3 weeks actually without any movement at all. And I think it was in the second week that there was a couple of points where I kind of felt quite low and quite upset, and I kind of panicked a few times that was going to be it. My face was going to be like that forever, but it wasn't. And I started to take photos of my face every single day. Or no, not every single day. I think it was like once a week in the end, but I was taking sort of regular photos so that I could kind of track and see what's happening. And I was also very lucky that through Chris's work, we got certain types of health benefits. So I'd looked into it and Chris had looked into it, and because I was on a waiting list for physio and that was going to take possibly a month or so, and I was quite adamant I wanted to do something sooner, I actually looked into acupuncture, and I went to a chap called Ben at Hadley Acupuncture, and I will put his details below. And I went along, and he had never dealt with this before, but he had dealt with other things. And what I really, really liked about Ben and his sort of way of doing acupuncture was there was science behind it. It wasn't kind of turning up to one of these places where there's lots of herbs and it's all a bit strange. There was, you know, proper science behind it, proper medicine behind it, and he was really, really nice. And we took photos and we took videos, and we really looked at the face and where it was happening. And he actually had a it was like electric stimulation acupuncture. So he would sort of do different acupuncture points on me, on my hands, on my feet and ankles, but also my face. And what he would do is he would connect it so it would actually make this nerve twitch. So we would do that as well. and it was taking a while, but then I think it was the 3rd week I started to get a twitch just around here. And what I will do is I'll put that clip in. It's barely visible, but I was so excited, and I remember going in to see him on my next session, and we were just so thrilled, and we couldn't believe that there was movement again. So I continued doing that. Now for me, after about the 3rd week, I was quite lucky. It started to come back, and by I think week 6 I was back at about 50-60% of my face. So I was very lucky. My eye was one of the first ones that kind of came back, and last for me really was my mouth. So the rest of this started to kind of wake up. Now during this time I couldn't shut this eye properly, so I had to get this very, very thick cream and put it in, because if you can't shut your eye properly, it can become obviously infected and it can get really dry and things can happen. So I had to put that in every night. I had to wear like a pirate eye patch when I went out into the sun, because I wouldn't shut, it wouldn't blink like a normal eye would. So I had to like wear this like pirate eye patch like everywhere I went, which was kind of embarrassing. But you know, I started to get out. I saw some of my colleagues who came sort of to see me, and they were amazing. Everyone just kind of covered everything. In total, I was off work for about 3 months. So I think I went off at the beginning of August, September, October, and I was back by the end of October to the beginning of November. Now, by that point, I was 90% back to normal. I was still really tired. I was still getting the face pain, but things were improving massively. And I was very lucky, because I mean, for some people it can take a lot longer. Some people don't even get movement until 6 months. Now, as to why it happens, people don't know. The doctors don't know why it happened. It's very rare in people under 40, and obviously I was only 26, 27, so that was quite rare. And they think it's caused by a virus. Now, the fact that I was quite ill before that, makes me think that it was related. They say it's possibly caused by the same type of virus that chickenpox is, and it lays dormant in your system. Now, one of my big questions was, will it happen again? And unfortunately, once you've had Bell's palsy, it is more likely to happen to you again, and tends to be a 10-year relapse. That's what they say. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. It could happen before that. It could never happen, but there is a chance that it would happen again. But it's more common in women, and it's more common in women over the age of 40, and generally mostly in women in their 60s. So there's a lot of kind of support out there online and things like that. And you know, if you are going through this, and if you're going through this right now, I definitely recommend going and reading and seeing people's stories. As you can see, I'm okay now. I can tell that like I don't quite have an even smile, so it doesn't look quite even. I can notice that sometimes when I move my face, that I just, especially in photos for me, I notice it, but nobody else notices it. And I know other people are left with big kind of noticeable things afterwards. Some people even have problems where the nerves, when they reconnect in the wrong way, so that when they do things like laughing, they cry and stuff like that. Now, I was very lucky I didn't get any of that, but what I was left with again was this sort of pain, and it wasn't really that bad for a while. It was sort of on and off, and yeah, that was kind of where I was at with my bells. Started to go back to work, started to go back to normal, and things were looking good. And then it was, I'm trying to think when it was now, let me have a look at my notes. So obviously all the swelling had gone down in my face and everything, and yeah, I'd stopped all my acupuncture, all of that, and it wasn't until like last year, so it's about 19 months afterwards, I think it was, in total, after sort of fully healing to what they were happy with, that I started to get pain again. Now, this pain was different to the pain before. I'd always kind of got an ache. If I got really tired, if I'd worked too much, I'd get like an ache here. But what I started to notice was that I was getting shocks, which would come across and down to here. And they would be like electric shocks, and it would only happen for 1 or 2 minutes, and it would really, really hurt, but then it would go. But then these started to get more frequent, and at the beginning of last year, I started to get what I started to refer to as attacks, and it was like my face would cramp really, 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 really hard, and then it would stop, and then it would cramp really, really hard, and it was one of the worst pains that I have ever felt. I was literally, I'm in my bedroom now, but I was literally burying my face and screaming, and I mean like screaming into a pillow one night, to the point where Chris actually phoned 111 again, and they basically managed to get me some pain relief that night, and then I sort of got an emergency appointment with the doctor, and the doctors weren't really sure what was happening. They think it might have been related to the bells, but they weren't 100% sure. So then I was put onto like cocodamol for a while, but then the attacks happened again, and it didn't help. The cocodamol, I could have took double the dose that they'd said, and it did not touch it at all. And once again, I was like in severe pain. Some days, like, I would just touch my face and it would set it off. If I'd go out in the wind, it would set it off. I could be eating, and that happened quite a lot. I'd be eating something and it would set it off. Wondered if it was dental, but then it wasn't dental, because I'd had my teeth out already, and it wasn't related to that, so there was nothing kind of like my wisdom teeth. And then I spoke to another doctor, moved doctor surgery, and then I was put on to amitriptyline, which is sort of a I think they used it for antidepressants and other stuff, but it was like a nerve thing, so they decided that they would use that. I was put on the amitriptyline, and this was like, by the time we got around to this, it was about May, June last year, and again it was still happening. It wasn't happening quite as frequently by that point, but the attacks were happening for longer, and I'd go like a couple of weeks and then it would come back. And especially for me, I had it really bad in the run up to my periods, so that was like a hormonal thing. They reckon that was interacting with it and making it worse. If also I noticed if I had any alcohol the next day, obviously I was really tired, that would set it off much worse. If I wasn't getting proper sleep, it would set it off. If I'd been out in the cold, like I mentioned, it would set it off. So there's all these different factors, and basically one of the doctors ended up suggesting that it was possibly trigeminal neuralgia. Now, they decided to treat me for this, and I'll explain a bit more what trigeminal neuralgia is in a second. And they moved me over to a drug called carbamazepine, which is what I'm on currently, and that is managing it, and that is one of the most effective treatments out there for trigeminal neuralgia. Trigeminal neuralgia is the nerve that carries basically sensations from your face to your brain, and also let's just have another look on here. Yeah, so it just carries sort of all the different sensations up and from around this space. So it's near where that other nerve is. There's loads of different nerves in your face. Now, this is what they call a rare chronic pain condition. There's about 10 in 100,000 people a year that are diagnosed with this. And I was one of those 10 that was diagnosed. I was put in touch with the TN support group, which I'm a member of. I have a little card. I don't know if I've got my card on me. I don't think I do, but it basically says, like, if I have an attack, I can hand that to somebody so they know. There is not, unfortunately, a cure. It's managed. It's actually known to be, or it used to be known to be, the suicide disease. And the reason they call it the suicide disease, or it was called that, was because the pain is so intense. It's one of the most painful chronic conditions that is known to the medical world, basically. And I mean, it is literally debilitating. I couldn't do anything. It's just, I can't even describe the pain. It's one of the worst pain, if not the worst pain I've ever felt. And I've had like bad back pain where I was like really in pain before. It can just happen suddenly. As I mentioned, you know, all those different things could set it off. Now, I am on medication, as I mentioned, carbamazepine. It's actually for epilepsy, but it is the most common drug that they use to treat TN. And that's because it just basically stops the nerves from sending the signal up and down, so it kind of interacts and stops that happening. Now I still get a twinge occasionally, I get a bit of pain, but the carbamazepine for me seems to be really working. If I forget to take it, boy do I know about it. Normally if I forget to take sort of 2 doses, so I'm quite careful. Unfortunately after my hen party last year, and I'll post a picture of me side by side, literally a day apart, I didn't take it because when you drink it can kind of affect it, and I was going out and I was like, you know, I want to enjoy, and I'm sure 1 dose won't be too bad, and I really paid for it after that weekend. I had one of the worst attacks I'd had in a long time, so I actually ended up having my carbamazepine put up, so I have like a double dose of that now, or I was on that for a while. I've actually gone back down to a single dose of that a day at the moment, and touch wood, I've not had a proper attack in a long while. So trigeminal neuralgia isn't curable, but it can go into remission. We're not sure if mine's in remission or if the medication is just managing it really well. I have a neurologist, and he checked in with me like I think 5 months ago now, and he will check in with me again pretty soon actually to see where we're at. One of the things we discussed was obviously carbamazepine and being on all these different medications. It's not great if you especially want to try for children, and Chris and I definitely, you know, in the not so far future, not now, but you know, in sort of a year or two's time, we want to try for children, and I don't want to be on that sort of heavy medication. So there is an option of surgery, there's an option of I think it's like a laser surgery as well, all these different things that we could possibly do, but at the moment we're just managing it with the medication. I do still have flare-ups where it gets quite bad, but as I mentioned, it's not to that point. As far as it being related to the bells, the doctors, because it is the same side, it seems really strange that it wouldn't be. They can't, however, say it is, but they can't say it isn't, is what they've basically said. So yeah, so that's kind of my strange chronic pain condition, and a bit about my wonky face. If you are going through either of these, or you're going through your own medical mystery or your own chronic condition, I mean, there are so many people out there. You know, I think one of the things always I've learned, and a lot of people have learned, I think especially over the past few years, you don't know what's happening to somebody. You know, I can look like this and I can go around, I can be happy, I can be absolutely fine, but within a blink of an eye I could be in excruciating pain. It's one of those things that you just have to get on with, and you just have to live with, and there are many people out there that have conditions where they have to just get on with it, and they do, but it is hard at times. I definitely have a bit of health anxiety. I worry about, you know, the bells coming back. I worry about having a TN attack, as we call it. So, you know, looking after your mental health as well is really important when you've got all these different things going on. But I just wanted to kind of tell you, about my experiences, and if there is anybody out there that has gone through these, I'd love to hear from you. If there's anyone out there who has their own stuff going on, you know, let me know. It'd be really good to get in touch, really good to hear from people. I will probably talk about this again in the future at some point, especially if we go down the surgery route, and if obviously my medication starts to be weaned off, whatever it is, I will keep my channel updated. But yeah, that's just, I guess, a little bit about me. I know this has been a really long video, so if you have made it this far, then thank you for watching. I do really appreciate it. Please click the like button, please subscribe and share this as well, because it really helps to talk about these conditions that people might not be aware of. But other than that, I hope you're well, and I hope you have a lovely week. Bye.